Welcome to your Joyful Riches podcast, where you gain precious tips and tools for creating the life you love, even if you are facing challenges and adversities. This podcast is delivered alongside the International Childhood Cancer Charity, where we empower, in addition to emotionally and physically heal disadvantaged children one child at a time globally. And for this week, we are so honored and thrilled to have Valerie with us. Thank you so much for joining us, Valerie. Would you care to share with us, with our audience, what is it that you do?
Yeah, so I'm a registered dietitian and I have a master's degree in nutrition. I currently do virtual nutrition education. I also do some nutrition education through social media platforms. And I kind of just try to focus more on prevention and chronic diseases such as diabetes, obesity, childhood obesity, etc.
Well, there is a saying, there is a saying, we are what we eat, right? So nutrition is
Yeah.
just so beyond important. And so would you is this something that you kind of inspired since some people here say it's, oh, I always want to become a dietitian and nutritions and educate people. Is that something or that you always inspired, or is there what inspired you to do what you do?
Well, when I was younger, I would read a book, and it was a more of like a natural kind of cures. It had like natural remedies, natural cures, and I thought that, after reading that book, it was my calling was to be in medicine, but I just didn't feel like medicine was the path for me. I didn't feel like I didn't like I don't like, just medicine kind of stuff. I really liked the nutrition side of that book, which was the natural cures and the, home remedies. I really like that. So that's what that kind of gave the inception of the idea from a young age. Then when I went to college, I realized that that was an option, that was actually a accredited field that a person can go into and profession that a person can go into. So that's when I decided to pursue becoming a dietitian.
Oh, wow, that is beautiful. How you are
Mhm.
able to bring something that kind of like your childhood passions. You're like, oh, sounds great. Because a lot of time like sometimes people like, well, when I was a kid, I want to become this, but that's too good to be true. And then we just end up doing whatever we're doing, right? But it's beautiful that this is a passions that you have from childhood, and you kind of like narrow it down and create what you love very much. That's really awesome. And with you talk about preventions as well as the childhood obesity and diabetes, and those are so important nowadays. And
Mhm.
so I mean, and talking about cancers, if one can prevent cancer, that's much better, or any disease, really. We can prevent them. That is so much better than having to treat. And do you have any couple tips and tools that kind of like for everybody, for people, for us, for you and me and everyone, in terms of certain things that we want to know to be able to stay healthy and prevent disease and chronic disease in particular, like you said, the diabetes and the heart problem and so forth, the obesity.
Mhm. Oh, well, I think the most simple thing, because there's a lot of that people can do. There's a lot of I mean, you can get as detailed as you want, but I think the most simple thing people can do is really reduce processed foods, reducing foods that kind of are not food anymore. Those have been kind of the biggest correlation to a lot of diseases. So, when you think of, for example, when you think of cereal, is that something that's grown out of a garden, no. You have to process it 2, 3 times to make cereal, or you have to process candy 2, 3 times to make a candy and add a lot of things to it. And many of those ingredients in candy, cereals, etc., they're not derived from natural sources. They're chemically modified as well. So, I would say the simplest thing a person can do is to reduce that, artificial like food that is not like it's not grown. It's not, you know, if you think of like a leaf or not leaf, but like spinach or banana, it's grown, it's not processed. You're eating it directly from the source, right? Even rice, you're eating it directly from the source versus, when you're eating a lot of other like cereals, candy, brownies, you name it. So that's the simplest thing I could say for everyone that they can start doing today.
Those are all the yummy one though.
Yeah, those
When you
are, I
say brownies,
know.
I'm like, oh, but I love brownies in all different
And
versions, right?
it's not like a you can never eat them. Of course, you can have days where you eat some of those, but it's really what's the bulk of your what are you doing most of the time, not what are you doing some of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you eat processed food most of the time, or do you eat something that is more now what about things like fast food, right? So for instance, I mean with certain fast food, let's say it's a fast food chain and joint, would you consider those processed? Because beef is beef, and things like sorry, French
Like
fry.
the buns or the
The
French fries.
things
Okay.
like the French fries is fries. So, but then people say, well, fast food's not healthy, but they're not are they processed? Would we consider them processed food?
So it depends on which fast food you're going to. Like you can go to Panera or you can go to Burger King or McDonald's, whatever. So it depends. And I think that a lot of these fast foods, they do process their beef or they process their foods to add extra ingredients and preservatives, so they can have a longer shelf life. And they do use um, like just lower quality ingredients to make it profitable for their business. So you have to keep that in mind. It's considered fast food for a reason, because it's fast, it's not perishable, and it has a high profit margin for the businesses. And things that have a high profit margin usually will be lower in cost. So it can pay a big portion of their profits to making new franchises, etc. So I would try to look at that. And if anyone has questions about these kinds of things, one thing that they can do is they can actually look at the ingredients. They can Google ingredients of McDonald's French fries or Google ingredients of the burger in McDonald's or, lots of things like that to kind of see what they're eating, to get an idea of what they're eating.
That's wonderful. I didn't even know that you can look up the ingredients of some fast food chain, the food. I didn't know that. I just like I think now nowadays they list the calorie. That's something here, at least in the US, right? It's kind of required. And but I didn't know you can look at the ingredients of that French fries. Is that really all healthy for you? For people who
Mhm.
might not be, some people said, yeah, but so what if it is, have all this preservative? So what if it has it's not natural, and so what if all these things, I mean, it sounds just like a variety of, things that trying to make us spend more money. Could you share just like briefly what is the impact of all these preservative and things to our body, to our health, but like kind of like what it does to us?
Yeah, so some preservatives are endocrine disruptors, so that's the first thing. Some of them can cause microinflammation in the body, and any form of inflammation in the body actually can slowly damage our organs. So when you can think of diabetes as an example. They have a chronic inflammation because of the excess sugar and the insufficiency of their pancreas. So in that case, that causes a lot of other micro damages, for example, to their heart, to their, other things. So when you think of processed food, you want to think of it in a similar way. It has endocrine disruptors, and it depends on the preservative. Some of them can cause microinflammation. Some of them are made with inflammatory ingredients. So all of those, it might not cause issues. Sorry, my eye. It might not cause issues like right away, but if you eat it after so many years, then you'll eventually see the effect on the body over time.
I love that.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I love that. I personally, my background's medicine. So, but like, sometimes I hear people, even some people from some family members of my family member, they're like, yeah, well, yeah, that's because you're a doctor and you're fancy. But, we eat this, we feel okay, we feel good. I'm like, but the long run, that migraine you're talking about, but people don't always see the correlations because it's happened in our body. I used to have what they call this, the inflammatory bowel disease syndrome, the inflammatory bowel, and long ago, a couple decades ago. And I think one of the way that they tried these medications and then a million medications, and doctor's visit later, I said, I think somebody's like, "Oh, but you changed your diet." It's like, and I changed my diet.
yeah.
And I, I magically no longer has some kind of bowel problem.
Oh, good,
Yeah,
good.
and I used to also have allergy all the time, and I was like, it's the weather, it's the dust, it's the whatever, and I was taking allergy medications daily. On daily basis, I have to take antihistamine,
Wow.
and the diet change that was 20 years ago. I
Good, good. Okay.
perfectly healthy with no allergy and no inflammatory whatsoever. But thank you so much. That is such a beautiful tips. Now I just have to ask this. I just have to ask this. Everybody says, the kind of like everybody has different opinions. So the questions is, do we really have to buy organic? Organic so much more expensive a lot of the time for most of us, and then so
Uh-huh.
it's really worth buying organic food. And if it and it, are there certain things that, like, if we have to choose and pick, are there certain things that's more important than other? If say somebody cannot buy everything under the sun organic. Yeah, or maybe
Mhm.
it's not even really significant to buy organic. What are your thoughts on organics?
Well, they do use, so organic means that they're not using certain pesticides in their food. So they're using safe pesticides. So you can use organic, like you can think of it as like if I grow a garden and I sell produce and I make my pesticide out of baking soda and vinegar. That's still a pesticide, but it's an organic form of pesticide versus a synthetic, possibly harmful pesticide. So the difference is really comes down to the pesticides, because we can't wash off of it all of it off completely. But if someone cannot afford organic, it's better to just buy natural produce than not. Just buy fruits and veggies, and you can always wash it, and you can always, soak the fruits and veggies in, um, baking soda or vinegar and things like that to kind of get rid of some of the pesticides. So you can always wash it, and it's better than not doing it at all, but not eating fruits and veggies at all. So that's what my tip is. If you can't afford it, just that's fine. Just focus on what you can afford and what you can have access to. And there's a lot of people who don't eat organic, and they're living really well because they eat healthy. So that's okay. It's really the nutrition overall is more important than little things. Like I had someone who wanted to eat organic, but then on the flip side was eating a lot of processed foods. It didn't make a lot of sense, right? So if you wanna, you gotta think of the whole thing. You gotta think of what is most of my diet comprising of. And if you can't do the organic route, just focus on the fruits and veggies and cutting out the bad stuff.
That's funny. I was thinking about that right before you. I was like, so you can eat organic, but if you eat a ton of or processed organic, it's still not good. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
that's interesting. So number one, minimize processed food, and if you're able to do organic, you do organic. But the processed food, you better eat natural things that's not processed than if you eat a ton of organics processed, it's still processed. So that's
Yeah.
wonderful. That's thank you so much for the really awesome tip. You mentioned you do a lot of educations and things for people. Do you how do people find out what you do and learn more from you?
I have kind of course, they're not huge, but I have some small social media platforms. I have a YouTube channel, where I, sometimes talk about different topics and things like that. It's called Nourished by Valerie, and that is my YouTube channel, and that's the same name as my TikTok and my Instagram. Nourished, Nourished by Valerie, Byvalerie. That's it. That's how they can find me if they're interested.
That's awesome. So yes, she's on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, and and I love your very practical tips. Because sometimes some people say, "Oh, you got to be really strict and this and the that, and they it's like oh, who
It's
live
too
like that?
hard.
Maybe you, right? Maybe you, but
Hmm.
I don't live like that. And when you travel, it's even more challenging to do. Huh? So is there any other tips or tools that you care to share with our audience?
Oh, I would say, if you are interested in health and nutrition, just keep being educated about it. There's so much free content now, um, that you can get, TikTok, YouTube, and there's a lot of content. You just have to find the right person who you have to figure out where you're at. If you're ready to be, super into fitness and into like organic, and or if you're one of those people who wants to make smaller changes. So whatever path you're on, you need to find someone who you can who can help you learn. And there's a lot of content out there, and there's a lot of information, and just start getting educated. Just 5 minutes, you can just learn something new every day, and that can help you make different choices.
That's beautiful. Baby steps and also knowing where you are, because if you just starting this and then you suddenly trying to change everything. I had
Yeah.
I'm in general I'm in general on daily life I'm a gluten-free, dairy-free, low soy pescatarian. And I remember one time my one of my colleagues looked at me and said like, what? Well, wait, firstly, what's all those words mean? I'm like, okay, gluten free, and then and she looks at me and she's like, gluten free, dairy free, low soy, pescatarian. What do you eat? Cardboard?
That
Cardboard
is so
fish?
funny.
So I was like, no, but you don't have to jump that far right away. So and organic
Yeah.
too, natural and organically resourced. And then then it's like, so you eat like what, cardboard fish that you go fishing from time to time? I'm like, no, but you don't have to jump that far. You do it at the speed that is comfortable for you. Well, thank you so much. That is beautiful. And do you have any different advice if it were for children?
Oh yeah, the thing is, I think that children are so impressionable from their parents. I mean, just everything, from their food to their way they think about life, relationships. Everything is so impressionable on children because their brain is developing at a very fast rate and growing. So what I would say for children, if the parents can really make it a point to be an example for their children. So if, children don't always listen to what you say, but they will follow what you do more often. So if they see their parents, having unhealthy habits, eating those foods, they want to do it too. They're going to do it too. If they see parents doing bad behaviors, they're going to do it too. We might say, don't do it, but they're going to eventually do it. So you have to be an example, whatever, you know, you might not think they're paying attention, but they are. So that's my biggest tip is like, I hate it when parents are like, oh, eat vegetables, but then they're buying unhealthy food and they're eating the unhealthy food and expect the kids to eat healthy. So my biggest tip is just be an example. You want your kid to do something, you have to be that model or else they will never do it.
That is so very true. I actually that you say that is so funny because I know a couple parents who, they have everything healthy at home, but they buy things like cookies and chips and what have you, and they eat them in the office.
Oh, okay.
But the kids know that, right? I mean, kids see what you shop and they're like, oh, and so and one of them actually, she came to me for grief, for a loss of somebody, but then along that she was like, yeah, my kid just passed away. I'm like, so tell me what happens. It's like, well, so because they say they eat healthy at home, but that at school they only want to eat chips and things, and that's how we discover this. Because
Mm,
they're like, well, but mom and dad eat healthy at home, and at school you eat cookies and chips. I mean, at work you eat cookies and chips. So apparently, it's okay to be eating junk food when you are at work or at school
yeah.
and eat healthy at home. I'm like, how about now that you have learned the tools not to navigate your emotions, you don't have to be eating those to not to survive at work. Just like that was so funny. But I love that. That is such
Mhm.
a great tip. Thank you so much. Thank you. And as we complete, this is such a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much. As we complete our time
Thank you.
there, do you have a one final message for our audience?
Oh, yeah, I do think that I guess the biggest message is, small changes and small habits can make into big, big changes in your life. So every day, like if you think about every day, if you're brushing your teeth, 20 years later, you might not have bone loss in your teeth. If every day you're not brushing your teeth, you'll see the effects 20 years later, right? So it's just small habits every day. If you can make it a part of your life, something small that can improve it, it'll make a difference. It'll make a big change in the long run.
Yeah, I love that. Baby steps, start where you are and make little small changes, because a lot of time with food and nutrition, it's things that you might not see the impact right away, because we're not talking about
Mhm.
food poisonings, but some 10, 20, 40 years from now, we'll see the impact. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the beautiful, beautiful tips and fun conversations, Valerie. And for you, my friend, who are listening to this, thank you for joining us. Please share this with your friends and family, and because they too want to live happy, healthy for a long time. I think we all do want to be healthy and then have our loved one to be healthy. And please also, in addition to sharing this, please also share one or two gold nuggets that you learned from Valerie today, so we can continue learning from each other. And thank you again for joining us. This is Dr. Birgit Tan, your grief specialist and founder of the International Childhood Cancer Charity. I am so honored to be with you today, and I look forward